Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Heather. I am the owner and author behind townsendhouse.com, where I help you implement systems and strategies in order to overcome the chaos and cultivate simplicity in your home and homeschool. Today we are going to be talking all about year-round homeschooling. What is it? Why would you possibly want to consider homeschooling all year round, and how we sort of set up our year and structure it for year-round learning. So first off, what is year-round homeschooling? So I think before you can understand what year-round homeschooling is, you have to understand that I really truly believe that kids are naturally curious and easily learn every day. No matter whether you put them in front of a workbook or if you let them explore on their own. They are constantly learning and asking questions and trying to figure out life. And so I know that not everybody believes that really as much as I do. I know that some people really feel that education is only when you are learning from a textbook or learning from a teacher, and that is totally fine. You may not get as much out of this particular video if you feel that way, or perhaps I might convince you to change your thinking a little bit. So I do believe that kids are constantly learning, and because of that, I do consider us year-round homeschoolers. Now, that does not mean that my kids sit down at the table and do seat work, what I call seat work, every day of the year. That would be slightly ridiculous. So instead, what we focus on is trying to capture what my kids are doing each day and how it relates to learning in the different subject areas that we are required to cover in our state. We live in Maine, and I believe there are 8 different subject areas that we're supposed to cover. So what I do is I look at what they do in a day, and I sort of compartmentalize how that relates to a different subject, whether they are writing a poem on their own or drawing for fine arts, or if they are baking or cooking or trying to build something outside. All of those things are learning. They may not look exactly like what you think of as school, but they are definitely learning. So why would you want to homeschool year-round? I know that a lot of people will homeschool September to May, just like in a public school system. They want to have the regular breaks that they are used to because they most likely went to public school, and their kids want that freedom in the summer. I totally understand that. We do not take as large of a break in the summer because I want to keep my kids in a learning rhythm. I have found that my kids do much better if there is a little bit of learning most days rather than a lot of learning on big chunks of time and then big chunks of time off. So the reason why we consider ourselves year-round homeschoolers is because I do allow the kids to follow their own interests while also getting some direction from me as far as learning goes throughout the entire year. Now, I am going to be looking at my notes just so that I cover everything that I want you to hear. So if I'm looking down, that is why. So the other reason that why you would want to homeschool year-round is to stay in that learning rhythm. I feel like a lot of times it's easy to fall out of the learning rhythm when you take a big chunk of time off. I know if you remember back to public school, or if your kids have attended any public school classes, the first several weeks of school is really just getting back into a routine of learning. And so when we practice that learning pretty much daily, they don't fall out of that routine. So they just are expecting that they are going to do some school. Now, like I said, it does not have to be seat work. It could be really any anything that you want them to learn. It could be nature walks, it could be nature journaling, it could be reading a book, doing math, whatever it is. But if you do a little bit daily, then they're not going to completely fall out of that rhythm. I do notice that when my kids do have a larger break, after, it's good for the first few days, and then they'll start to bicker. And when they start to bicker, I know that they need more rhythm back into their days, more structure, more learning. So we have found that if we keep a little bit of structure throughout the year, the kids tend to do better. This also helps with not falling behind or back, what they call like the summer slide, when they forget a lot of what they had learned the previous year because they're not using it daily. So when you are constantly moving forward, even just in small, tiny increments, you're not getting that same slide that you do when you take a larger chunk of time off. Now, how does year-round homeschooling work? So for us, we have some set things that we try to do daily regardless. Those are reading, math, and writing. I'm very lucky because my kids do enjoy writing. They like to write stories. They like to write scripts for movies. They like to draw comics and write little, draw a picture and write what they're saying and whatnot. It doesn't always have to be like formal writing. It doesn't have to be a research paper, although my kids also enjoy doing that. They like to use Google Slides to put together presentations. And so we are lucky in that fact. I don't know. I think that part of it is because I have not put such a stress on them as to writing correctly, making sure they have the correct punctuation, the spelling, the grammar, and editing everything that they come to me with. Instead, what I do, even if it is really atrocious, I read it, I let them present it to me, and I say, that's really creative, great job. That gives them confidence to go forward and continue doing it. And the more that they do it, even on their own, the better they improve. So that is part of our daily rhythm. Reading is another part of our daily rhythm. We read daily. My kids read at night, during the day. I read to my kids every day. It is part of our family culture to read together as a family and to read on our own. I love reading. I would probably sit and read all day if that were a possibility. That's like my number one desire for Mother's Day, to just sit and read all day. But so my kids they see me reading, so they want to read. I try and give them interesting books. We try to stay away from the twaddle books, the kind of mindless books. But even then, my kids like the Dog Man comics, and if they are reading, I am happy. And then a little bit of math. Now, with math, it's a little different because I do tend to try and keep them in some sort of a curriculum so that they're able to just do a lesson every day. And but that's not every day. Sometimes we do take a box mix out of the cupboard or follow a recipe, and that can also count as math. Math also counts when they are measuring wood to build some creation outside. That is also math and counts in my book for learning. So those three things are what we try to do most daily. Now, how we structure that is a little different. So our school year runs July 1st to June 30th. Those are just the dates that I chose 10 years ago, and that is what we do. So we start usually our new curriculum right around the first week in August. In July, we spend doing more outside fun stuff. And so we start our book learning and we do a slow rolling start, adding in a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, until usually mid-September, when we're full steam ahead into our normal school routine. And then we go straight to Thanksgiving, and we take off from Thanksgiving all the way to New Year's, the first week in January. So that time between Thanksgiving and New Year's, we are still doing school. Now, I do take off the week of Thanksgiving. I do take off the week of Christmas, where we're not doing anything. But we are working on baking and cooking for Thanksgiving. We're working on making place settings, putting together Christmas cards for friends and family, looking at budgets as far as what we can purchase for gifts. My kids like to buy gifts for everybody in the family, and so we have to go through and sort of help them figure out, well, you cannot spend $300. That sounds like a great thing to buy Emma a Switch because we have a Switch, but maybe get a remote control instead. So, there is still learning. It is different learning. And so the kids feel like they're having a break. We do more crafts, more fine art stuff, creating, making Play-Doh or cloud dough or kinetic sand. There are a lot of different options as far as learning goes and how you structure that learning during those break times. So we have off from Thanksgiving to New Year's, and then we get back into really dedicated school learning. January and February are very cold and icy and dark in Maine, and it is perfect for the bulk of our seat work and book work and a lot more heavy academic work when the kids don't really want to be outside because it's way too cold. So that's kind of how we structure it. And then we finish up our days usually in the middle of April, and we take a little bit of a break and we move towards more outside activities, spring, mud season, getting the garden ready, thinking about outside tasks that need to be done. So even though it doesn't necessarily look like sitting down at a desk and learning, it is still learning. So I guess that's what I really want to strive for you to understand, is that just because your child is not sitting at a desk and doing a workbook page does not mean that that does not count as learning. And so part of this whole year-round homeschooling process is to get out of that public school mindset. A few years ago, I wrote an article about getting out of the public school mindset and how a lot of homeschool parents are really paralyzed in that public school mindset. You think about public school, you think about what you did in school growing up, and you expect that that is how a homeschool should also operate. However, public school is a lot about classroom management, and homeschool, you don't have that same classroom management expectation. Yes, you do have to still manage your kids, but it is different because you are their parent. So, a lot of times when you say something, you expect it to be done. It's not always done, but you don't have to take as much of a break to deal with particular situations in a school setting. So getting out of that public school mindset, getting out of that idea that the only learning that you can do is when you're listening to a teacher give a lecture to you and you're taking notes, or you're doing a worksheet, or you've been assigned homework. If you can let that go and see that your kids are still learning even when you're not actively teaching them something, you will be better off for that. Now, it doesn't mean that you stop all book learning, but you are able to let your child lead a little bit more. Now, I want you to think a little bit about when you want to learn something. When you want to learn something, you take the steps necessary to learn that thing. Whether you research it online, you look for a book, you watch a YouTube video, whatever it is, you seek out the information so that you can learn it. And with year-round homeschooling, that is what we are training our kids to do. So when we are not actively teaching them, we want them to still be seeking out information to learn on their own. My primary goal of homeschooling is to create a love of learning and to create kids that grow into adults that know how to learn. So I really believe if you know that you want to learn something and you're given the freedom to research that thing, to really explore it so that you can learn it, you will be better off in the future for that. You are better off for that if you are able to seek out the information on your own to teach yourself. And so when your kids also have that freedom to understand that they can also seek out information on their own to learn a new skill or idea or explore an idea, that is really going to help them in the long run. That is what we're striving for. We want them to teach themselves. So how we structure our year is seasonally. We work in seasons. That works really well for us in Maine because we do have 4 or 5 seasons if you count mud season. And so, like I said, we go through the different seasons mean different learning opportunities. In the dark days of winter, we are practicing all the hygge that we can. We're lighting the candles. We're doing a lot of book learning. But when it's nice out, we want to get outside. We want to explore nature, our environment around us. We want to volunteer. Not right now because it's a pandemic, but we want to get involved with the community and what the community offers for our kids to learn and to learn how to become good members of society, productive members of society, and allowing them the opportunity to engage in learning differently than just being talked to and told exactly how to learn or what they need to learn, what is most important, and instead allowing them to sort of make some of that decision for themselves is helpful. Now, will this work for everyone? I think that it probably could, but I know that it will be difficult for some people. Some people do like to go on a lot of vacations in the summer, and there's nothing wrong with going on vacation. I would say, yes, go on vacation, but also allow yourself to follow some of those learning opportunities that you will find when you're exploring a new location. I know that probably in high school it would be different because you are then counting credit hours to create a transcript for college, and so your kids may need a bit of a break, but it's a little different because they're moving from really concentrated subjects into a new concentrated subject. It's not the same when they're in elementary through middle school, but also during the seasons where you're not really focused on academics, there could be a lot of project-based learning for your high schooler. They can really deep dive into a particular subject that interests them, and that can also go on their transcript as extracurricular or depending on the workload. I know in one of my homeschool groups online, there was a mom talking about her daughter who created a whole business and has spent significant time creating an Etsy shop and a website and selling her creations to the public, and how that is a passion of hers. And it covers several different subject areas, and because she's spending so much time creating that business, it does also count for credits. So that's just an example of how year-round learning can work even in the high school age. Now, I know that some parents just don't want to be bothered during breaks, and I have to tell you, I have had those seasons too, particularly when we have had a lot of craziness in our family. We have taken several breaks during our move and buying a new house where I didn't do anything with the kids at all. I was not involved with teaching them anything, but what I found was that they were spending a lot of time in community with their friends creating anyways. They were creating stories together. They would get on Google Hangouts with their cousin and talk about different stories that they would want to write, or Emma and Jack and their cousin worked on an axolotl presentation, because axolotls can be had as pets in other states but not in Maine, and Emma really wants an axolotl. So whatever it is, if you take a step back and observe what your kids are doing, you may be surprised that they are taking so much initiative on their own. And even if it's just playing Minecraft constantly, Jack he loves Minecraft, and he's making Let's Play videos, and he loves to do that. So he is playing a video game, Minecraft, but he can tell me about all of these different elements and rocks, and he knows how to make fire and all the different combinations of items to create things in Minecraft. Things that I had no idea about, but are actually based in real science. So kudos to him for figuring that out. But also, he's making a Let's Play video, so he's doing video editing and trying to figure out how to explain things to other people. So it's not necessarily public speaking, but in a way it is. It's teaching somebody else what you're doing. So those are still learning opportunities. Those are still things that they are learning. It's just recognizing that, I think, is the difficult thing sometimes for us. So now, how are you going to record the learning that is happening? And I think that is where a lot of people struggle. But what I'm going to say, and I'm going to do another video about this, is talk a little bit about planning from behind. Really, all it is recording what your kids are doing in a day. Just write it down. Write a few sentences of what they have done, and then really evaluate that and see, does it fit in particular subject areas? If they wrote a story, that is English and language arts. If they made a movie, that could be computers, it could be English and language arts again if they wrote out a script. If they're reading a book for enjoyment, English. If they're going on a nature walk or dissecting poisonous caterpillars outside, science. If they're building something, engineering, whatever it is, it is all learning. But you just need to take a step back and recognize that it may not be what public school considers learning in the moment, but it is still learning. And the reason that public school doesn't count it as learning is because they don't have that opportunity to really let kids follow their own interests. When they are managing 20 or 30 kids in a classroom, they can't follow all of those rabbit trails, and you have that opportunity to do that. So if you find a rabbit trail that you want to go down, you can take your curriculum and push it off for a couple of weeks and really concentrate on that one subject area that the kids are interested in. It gives them a sense of control over their education, and it encourages them to continue asking questions and learning going forward. Now, how does schooling year-round cultivate simplicity? The reason it cultivates simplicity is because it takes so much stress off of you. If you accept that your kids are going to be constantly learning, if you're going to commit to follow some of those rabbit trails and allow them to have more control over their education, it's going to take a lot of stress off of you. I know that oftentimes parents, especially homeschool parents, feel like you're not doing enough. You're worried that you're not teaching the right things, that your kids are not going to be able to keep up with their peers in whatever it is. But because you are so concerned about that, you really don't have to stress, because you are providing so much support to them that it would be very difficult for them to not continue to move forward in their educational path. It may look different than public school, but that is okay, and that is a reason to homeschool. It allows us the freedom to conform to our own ideals as far as what school should look like. We don't have to look at school in a particular way. It doesn't have to be 40-minute classes with 20 minutes of homework per class. It doesn't have to be so structured that we feel that weight, that we're not able to continue, that we're not having fun in our learning. So I want to encourage you to think ahead to the next school year. That's what I'm doing right now. That's why I'm doing this video, because I am thinking ahead to 2020-2021 homeschool year and how we are going to structure our year to continue learning even when we are not actively doing our chosen curricula. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have questions, please leave them in the comments below. I did also write a blog post, and I will leave that in the description box if you have more questions that may help you. I just want to remind you that you are doing such a great job for your kids. You do not need to stress out about their learning. You are seeking new information. You're teaching your kids new information. You want to foster that love of learning with them. So let go of that stress and just enjoy the end of your school year and starting to think about the year ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.